Hi everyone. Sadie and I found this great book, and it's the 101 Stories of the Great Ballets. And since we're supposed to be doing parts from Coppelia at the June/July/August slash whenever we have it show, we thought we would read it in 3 acts, 3 separate videos, so you can listen along and know the story because we learn all these great variations all the time, and I don't think anyone knows what their dance is in the context of the whole ballet. So we're going to read this. Okay, so Coppelia, also known as The Girl with Enamel Eyes. It's a classic ballet in 3 acts. The music is by Léo Delibes, and it was originally performed in Paris in 1870, and it was first performed in the United States by the American Opera at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York in 1887. So, Act 1, The Square. A spacious overture sets the tone for the whole ballet. The music begins with a melody of quiet dignity, first stated by the horns, then swept up by the strings. A muffled drum sounds, and the mood changes spontaneously to open excitement as the orchestra plays a spirited, robust mazurka. Picture from the 90s to follow. At its conclusion, the curtain rises. The scene is a square in any small town in Central Europe. The time is a sunny afternoon several hundred years ago. A small house in the back faces the audience. On the side, a higher dwelling with a balcony projecting from the second floor dominates the street. Other buildings cluster about the square in a pleasantly haphazard fashion. All the facades are clean and painted in bright colors, and the walls and roofs seen in the background confirm our impression of an old village whose charm has not been worn away by changing times. The square is empty. An old man, bent with age, hobbles out of the door of the house on the right. This is Dr. Coppelius, the town's most mysterious citizen. He is said to dabble in alchemy and magic, kind of like chemistry, and no one knows precisely what he does. Coppelius looks up at the balcony of his house, and we see that a lovely young girl is sitting there reading a book. She is hidden a little from the full light of the sun, is wholly preoccupied with her reading, and takes no notice of the old doctor. Coppelius points up at the studious girl, rubs his hands with satisfaction as if he were a delighted chaperone, and re-enters his house. The door of the little house in the back opens in a moment, and Swanhilda emerges. She is dressed in bright colors, particularly becoming to her dark beauty. From her movements, we know almost immediately that she is very young and very much in love. The music to which she dances is piquant in the unembarrassed fullness of its melody, and Swanhilda dances to it with obvious pleasure at some inner happiness. She walks rapidly on point, looking about the square anxiously to see that she is alone. She is expecting someone, but has some business of her own to attend to first. She glances up at the balcony of the large house and sees there the charming young girl, just as attractive as she is. The girl is immensely occupied in holding the book rigidly before her as she does not look down to Swanhilda waving at her frantically. Swanhilda becomes very annoyed. First of all, she is annoyed because the girl is clearly snubbing her, but she is annoyed mostly because she has noticed that Franz, her fiancé, has also waved at this strange girl and has never mentioned it to her. Everyone calls the girl Coppelia. She is said to be the old man's daughter, but Coppelius has never appeared with her in the streets of the town, and their relationship is just as unfathomable as Coppelius himself. Swanhilda imitates her, holding an imaginary book before her. Then she bows low to Coppelia in mock ceremony. Still, the girl does not notice her. Swanhilda stamps her foot in annoyance and dances briefly. She does not understand why Coppelia sits there reading on such a beautiful day and suspects she might be in a trance. On the other hand, she might be waiting for Franz. Swanhilda approaches the house to see the girl more closely, shakes her fist at her, but quickly turns away as she hears Franz coming down the street. She is carefully hidden by the time he enters, and she secretly observes him. Franz is a high-spirited young peasant dressed in country costume. Interesting. Like Swanhilda, Franz is open and carefree by nature, but his heartiness masks a certain conceit. He seems not to have a care in the world and would not think it odd every girl in the village adored him as much as Swanhilda does. Thinks a little bit too much of himself, does he? He does not go directly to Swanhilda's door, but instead strives over to the house of Dr. Coppelius. After making sure that he isn't being watched, he glances up at the balcony. He waves to Coppelia flirtatiously, but also casually, as if he were in the habit of greeting her every time that he passed. He points to Swanhilda's door and remembers his love for her in the midst of this new infatuation with Coppelia. He clearly enjoys not knowing which girl to choose. He clutches his heart as he looks up at Coppelia, then blows a kiss to her. Swanhilda's worst suspicions of Franz seems to be now justified. Her suspicions become fears when Coppelia looks up from her book and waves back to Franz. Neither she nor Franz can see that behind the girl, Coppelius is standing there concealed. He watches the flirtation with obvious disapproval, steps forward quickly, and closes the curtains in front of Coppelia's face. Franz is annoyed by the sudden disappearance of his new love. He is so distressed that he doesn't notice Swanhilda, who has come into the square and stands right behind him. Swanhilda refuses to attract his attention when he won't even turn away from the balcony. She storms off. Now Franz consoles himself by remembering his rendezvous with Swanhilda, but he does not have time to reach the door before she returns, bringing a beautiful butterfly she has just caught. Franz takes the butterfly from her and pins it to his shirt. To Swanhilda, this harmless gesture is a stab on her own broken heart. She bursts into tears and angrily accuses Franz of being unfaithful to her. She has no patience with his offhanded answers and suggests that they come to him just as readily as his flirtations. Now that he is as serious as she is, Franz sincerely denies that he loves anyone but her. But Swanhilda is firm in her disbelief. She will not listen to him. I don't blame her. Now Franz begins to lose his temper. How can she fail, he wonders, to see that he loves only her? Swanhilda leaves the square, and Franz hails a party of peasants, their friends, who are unaware of all of the tension between them. Sounds like a sitcom, or it sounds like a drama, huh? They dance together in a mazurka that the orchestra first played in the overture, and when Swanhilda joins them, her anxieties are momentarily dispelled. But she is determined to keep clear of Franz, and even at the sacrifice of her happiness, will accept no explanations. The dancing of the peasants halts as the burgomaster enters the square. Everyone stands aside to make room for him and listens attentively as he tells them that the next day, the village will receive a great new bell for the town clock as a gift from the lord of the manor, and that they must prepare themselves for the celebration attendant upon the ceremonies. Sounds like lots of the hours is coming up later. The peasants are delighted at the idea of an unexpected festival. Their pleasure is so great that they don't pay much attention to the strange noises emanating from the house of Dr. Coppelius. They go on to say that the gracious Lord will present handsome dowries to the girls who marry on the day of the festival. Several couples look at each other expectantly, but Swanhilda is unmoved. Franz is watching her closely. They turn and ask her if she will be wed tomorrow. Unwilling to expose her broken heart to her friends, and perhaps still hoping that she may be wrong about Franz's love, Swanhilda resorts to fate and takes up an ear of wheat, which is offered to her, and shakes it near her ear, looking at her fiancé. The custom is, if she hears anything, her lover loves her true. If the wheat is silent, her lover does not love her. Franz supports Swanhilda in lovely, deep poses as she bends low to listen to the shaking of the wheat. Swanhilda hears nothing. Franz, who thinks this is silly, also hears nothing. She calls over to her friend and shakes the wheat again. The friend claims there is no sound, but Swanhilda will not believe it. She throws the straw to the ground and announces that she and Franz are no longer engaged. Franz stalks away in disgust at the ways of women. Yeah, whatever. While Swanhilda joins her friends to dance a bright, exciting tune as if nothing has happened to disturb their good time. Yeah, ladies, that's how it goes. A drum roll sounds, and Swanhilda's friends dance a Zardos, a Hungarian folk dance that starts out with a slow, formal dignity and then increases in both speed and humor to become very fast and joyful. The light grows dark, and the group soon disbands. The stage is empty as night falls. The door to Dr. Coppelia's house opens, and the old man comes out. He pulls out a large key, locks the door, tries it several times, puts the key away, pats his pocket, and proceeds slowly across the square, leaning heavily on his cane. Obviously reluctant at leaving his house, Dr. Coppelius is easily frightened by a band of pranksters who come at him in good humor, dance around him, and boisterously try to overcome his reluctance to join in. He loses his temper, which only encourages the teasing even more. As they push him about, Coppelius drops his key. The villagers do not notice this and soon leave him. He shuffles across the street on his errand, shaking his head at their annoyance. Swanhilda and a group of her friends pass him as they enter on their way to their dinner. Swanhilda is delighted to find that he has lost his key. She looks back towards Dr. Coppelius, who has now disappeared, and then at his empty house. Her friends easily persuade Swanhilda to try the key in Coppelius's door. At last, she will soon discover the elusive Coppelia alone. She goes to the door, fits the key to the lock, and signals to her friends to follow. They all step inside the house. She backs out hurriedly, frightened at her own audacity in the dark interior. Her friends line up behind her in single file, trembling with fear, and one by one they enter the house. The square is deserted for a moment, then Franz comes in armed with a ladder. The youth is determined to have his love acknowledged by Coppelia now that Swanhilda has broken their engagement. He is climbing up a window when Dr. Coppelius, who has finally realized that he dropped his key, rushes in to look for it. He apprehends Franz, attacks him with his walking stick, and chases him off. That sounds like kind of a fun scene. He then continues to search for the key. When he fails to find it and discovers that his door is wide open, he throws up his hands in despair and with great agitation runs into his house. The persistent Franz re-enters, placing his ladder again, and climbs toward the mysterious Coppelia. The curtain falls. So at the end of Act 1, Dr. Coppelius realizes that Swanhilda and all her friends are inside his house. Franz is climbing the ladder to get into the window on the balcony with the doll. And Act 2 is when they're actually inside of Dr. Coppelius' house with all his crazy, weird, creepy dolls. So, as a treat for you, I'm going to share with you a lovely picture of Mazurka with yours truly in 1995. I bet you can't figure out which one is Miss Rebecca, huh? I'm clearly the tallest one in the picture. All right, stay tuned for Act 2.